In part 1, we talked about the fall, the promises, the hype, the launch, and the silence. But this is part 2. This is what happens after the silence ended. This is what 18 quintillion planets actually look like when someone decides to build them out properly. August 2016, No Man's Sky launches to one of the most catastrophic receptions in gaming history. The promises of multiplayer that didn't exist, worlds that felt empty, a community that felt betrayed. Hello Games went silent. No press conference, no apology tours, no roadmap promises. Just 16 people sitting down and deciding that the only answer was to build something they had described. If you want the full story of how they got there, there's a part 1, link in the description. This video starts where that one ended. November 2016, 3 months after the worst launches of their lives, Hello Games pushes an update. They called it Foundation. No trailer, no announcement, no press release. It simply appeared in the patch notes one morning. Foundation added base building to No Man's Sky, the ability to claim a planet, to lay foundations, to construct walls and roofs and power systems, to build something permanent in a universe that had previously offered nothing but passing through. It was a small addition by the standards of what would follow, but the name was deliberate. Hello Games weren't just adding base building. They were telling anyone still paying attention exactly what they were doing. They were laying a foundation for something much larger. The community that remained, a small, patient, and cautious community, noticed. The Steam reviews didn't reverse overnight. The headlines didn't pivot to redemption. But the players who had stayed logged back in, and Hello Games kept working. March 2017, Pathfinder. Ground vehicles finally arrived in No Man's Sky. The Exocraft, rovers that could traverse planetary surfaces faster than on foot, mine resources at scale, and explore terrain that previously existed purely as backdrop. Pathfinder also introduced a permadeath mode and a survival mode, difficulty options that gave the game genuine stakes for players who had exhausted the base experience. A new progression system began taking shape. Photo mode arrived, a feature that seems minor until you realize it transformed every single player into a documentarian. The screenshots that emerged from Pathfinder's photo mode were the first real glimpse of No Man's Sky's visual potential. Players began sharing images of alien landscapes that looked like concept art. The game had always been procedurally beautiful, and Pathfinder was the first time that beauty became broadly visible. Still no multiplayer, still no resolution to the question that the community had been asking since launch. But the direction was clear. Hello Games was building piece by piece towards something much larger. August 2017, the 1-year anniversary of the worst launch of their lives, Hello Games released Atlas Rises. 18 hours of new story content, a completely overhauled narrative thread connecting the Atlas stations to the game's central mystery, portal mechanics that allowed players to share coordinates and visit each other's discoveries, a terrain editing tool, a day and night cycle overhaul, and for the first time, a hint of multiplayer. Not full multiplayer though, only the ability to see other players' icons in the world, to know that someone else is out there, to follow them through a portal if you so choose. It wasn't what had been promised at launch, but it was a step forward that felt deliberate rather than desperate, and the community began to shift. Not forgiving, not yet, but watching, cautiously, carefully watching. The Steam ratings were still negative. The launch wounds were still fresh, but the conversations were changing. Something was being rebuilt here, and you could feel it. July of 2018, 2 years after launch, Hello Games released Next, and this time the world noticed. Next was not a patch, it was a content update. It was, in almost every meaningful way, the game that No Man's Sky was supposed to be at launch. Full multiplayer, up to 4 players exploring the same planet simultaneously, visible to each other and able to trade and communicate and build together. The feature whose absence had broken trust in 2016, finally fully present. A complete graphical overhaul, planets that looked richer, more detailed, more varied than anything in the original release. Atmospheric effects that almost made alien skies feel genuinely alien. Third-person perspective, the ability to see your own character for the first time. Base building expanded dramatically, a new progression system, freighter customization, the player count spiked immediately, and Steam reviews began their long, slow pivot. The word redemption appeared in gaming headlines for the first time, and Hello Games said nothing publicly. They just kept working. Next was the moment that gaming world had acknowledged that something extraordinary was happening in Guildford, England. A studio that had been written off, mocked, and declared dead had just shipped the game they promised 2 years ago, for free. To everyone who had ever bought No Man's Sky, including the players who had left furious reviews in 2016, all of it for free. August 2019, Beyond. If Next was the game No Man's Sky was supposed to be at launch, then Beyond was the game that nobody had thought to ask for. Virtual reality support finally arrived, full VR capabilities across PlayStation VR and PC headsets. Standing on the surface of an alien planet with virtual reality, looking up at the skies filled with 2 moons and a distant space station. It was one of the most immersive experiences consumer VR had produced to that point. The Nexus arrived, a social space hub where players could gather, take on missions together and show off their bases, and interact in ways that felt genuinely alive. Cooking and creature companion systems added domestic depth to the game that had previously been purely about exploration and survival. You could now befriend an alien fauna of a planet, feed them, and keep them. The Steam ratings at this point crossed the mostly positive territory for the first time ever, 2 years after Next, 3 years after launch. Hello Games had earned back the rating they lost in the worst week of their professional lives, and they were not finished. What followed Beyond was not a slowdown. Origins in 2020, the terrain generation rebuilt from scratch, planets more varied, more dramatic, more alive than anything in the game's previous 4 years. New biomes, new weather systems, new creature behaviors. Prisms in 2021, a complete lighting overhaul, volumetric lighting, reflections. The game that had been visually impressive became visually extraordinary. Frontiers 2021, alien settlements to discover and manage, a living civilization layer added to a universe that had always felt inhabited but empty. Sentinels in 2022, the robot guardians of planets rebuilt entirely, a new threat system, and combat with genuine consequence. Outlaws in 2022 introduced space piracy, outlaw systems, solar ships, and a criminal underworld woven into the fabric of the universe. In 2022, we got Waypoint, the largest quality of life update in the game's history. Inventory overhaul, difficulty customization, accessibility points. The game was finally treating every type of player as valid. Fractal in 2023, a new PSVR 2 mode, new expeditions, the game keeping pace with hardware evolution year after year. Echoes in 2023, a full robotic alien race added to the universe, a new story, and new mechanics. Omega in 2024, multiplayer expeditions, new missions, the live service model done without a single paid DLC. 25 major updates, and every one of them free to every player who had ever bought the game. In an industry that charges for map packs, in an industry that sells story content as DLC, in an industry where a cosmetic skin costs $15. Hello Games gave away years of development work to the same players who had called for their studio to be shut down. So what is No Man's Sky in 2026? It is a base building game, a survival game, a space exploration game, a multiplayer social experience, a virtual reality showcase, a creature collecting game, a trading simulator, a space combat game, a story-driven narrative experience. It is, in the most literal sense, everything Sean Murray had described back in 2016. It might have just taken them 10 years to add it. The 18 quintillion planets that felt empty at launch are now populated with alien settlements, sentinel patrols, crashed freighters, ancient ruins, pirate ambushes, biological horrors, and bioluminescent flora that exist purely to be beautiful. The multiplayer that didn't exist in 2016 now supports dozens of players in the same system simultaneously. Expeditions bring the entire community together around shared goals every few months. Temporary seasonal content that creates genuine collective moments in a universe that felt entirely solitary. The Steam ratings, overwhelmingly positive. That rating almost never changes once a game earns overwhelmingly negative. The gap between those two designations is almost never crossed. But No Man's Sky crossed it, and they kept going. In part 1, we asked whether Hello Games deserved their redemption. It is still a fair question. The launch was broken, the promise outran the reality, and players spent money on something that wasn't finished and weren't told it wasn't finished. That happened, it matters, and it shouldn't be forgotten, but here is also what happened. 16 people, some of them by the end, sat in a studio in Guildford and spent 10 years building the thing they had described. Not because a publisher mandated it, not because a shareholder demanded it, and not because a PR strategy required it. Because they felt like they owed it. No theater, no press release, no redemption arc carefully managed by a communications team. Just the work. No Man's Sky in 2026 is not the game that launched in 2016. It's something rarer than that. It is proof that the gap between what was promised and what was delivered can be closed. It just requires someone willing to spend 10 years closing it. And Hello Games spent those 10 years. And in the end, they closed it.